call came at 3:12 a.m. Claire's voice was flat, rehearsed. "I'm sorry. Something went wrong during delivery. The baby didn't make it." That was it. No tears, no breakdown, just those words and then silence. I was in the hospital parking lot 15 minutes later. Heart pounding, hands trembling, eyes already dry. They wouldn't let me in to see him. "The body's already been transferred," a nurse explained without meeting my eyes. Claire was sedated, I was told. Complications. They'd keep her for observation. Our son didn't have a name yet. We'd waited to meet him first. That moment never came. The funeral was held 2 days later. Closed casket. Claire said she didn't want me to see him like that. "It's better to remember him the way we imagined," she whispered, squeezing my hand hard enough to leave marks. Her eyes were red but dry, focused on the ground. No one else came. We hadn't told anyone she'd gone into labor early. She wanted it that way. Quiet. Private. "Just us," she said. I took a week off work and spent most of it in the garage. I couldn't bring myself to enter the nursery we'd painted a soft gray-green. The crib was still in its box. The mobile still in plastic. I didn't cry. Not once. Not because I wasn't grieving. I just didn't know how. Grief didn't arrive like a storm. It came like a slow leak. Quiet, persistent, leaving everything damp and unusable. I slept on the couch more often than not. Ate when I remembered. Drank more than I should have. The silence between us grew thick, not hostile, just there. Sometimes I thought about him. Not in full images, just flashes. A tiny hand curled into a fist, the weight of a newborn on my chest, his first breath. Then I'd remind myself none of that had happened, and wouldn't. I tried to be the strong one, the steady one. Claire said she couldn't handle talking about it, and I didn't want to make things harder. So I stopped mentioning it, buried it deep. Our son had died. That was the truth I lived with. At least, that's what I believed at the time. After the funeral, Claire didn't talk about the baby again. She packed the unused clothes and diapers into boxes the following weekend and stacked them neatly in the attic. I offered to help, but she waved me off. "I need to do this," she said, her voice too calm. When I went up a few days later, the boxes were gone. "Donated," she said. "It's better that way." We settled into a new rhythm, if you could call it that. Claire started volunteering at a women's shelter a few evenings a week, said it helped to be useful. She stopped wearing her wedding ring, claiming it didn't fit right anymore. She kept her phone close, face down. Sometimes I'd wake up and find her on the back porch, staring out into the dark with a glass of wine, not noticing I was watching. I didn't push. I'd learned to keep my questions soft, my presence softer. I thought she was grieving in her own way, that maybe if I gave her space, she'd come back eventually. Meanwhile, I buried myself in work. I'm a systems engineer. Precision, logic, structure. It made sense when nothing else did. I took on more hours, brought projects home, let the quiet hum of code drown out the emptiness in the house. Our conversations became transactional: dinner, bills, laundry. Occasionally, she'd touch my shoulder in passing, like she remembered to pretend we were still something. There were no fights, no slammed doors, just a slow erosion. The kind that hollows a house from the inside until all that's left is the facade. 6 months passed, then a year. Her smiles became rarer, brittle when they did appear. She'd flinch when I mentioned anything about the past. Pregnancy, ultrasounds, even the name we almost picked. "It's behind us," she'd say quickly. "Let's not relive it." Some nights I'd lie awake wondering what I'd missed, wondering if it was just the grief or something deeper. There was something in her eyes now, something shuttered, like a door had closed and locked, and I hadn't even noticed until it was too late. I didn't know it yet, but the truth wasn't behind us at all. It was waiting, just ahead, and it was far worse than anything I'd imagined. It started with a letter from the insurance company. 2 years had passed. Claire and I were still married, technically. We drifted into something like quiet cohabitation, separate routines, shared walls, not much else. I worked late most nights. She spent weekends at wellness retreats or visiting a cousin I'd never met. We rarely spoke unless it was necessary. The grief had calcified into distance. The envelope looked like any other piece of junk mail. I almost tossed it, but something about the bold red review stamp caught my eye. Inside was a breakdown of hospital charges flagged for audit. It listed Claire's stay from the night she gave birth, or said she did. I skimmed it once, then again slower. There it was, a charge for 3 days of NICU care, infant monitoring, oxygen support, postnatal observation. 3 days. We were told he died during delivery. No chance to hold him, no time to say goodbye, just complications, and then gone. I remember Claire saying he didn't make it, like it was a headline. No explanation, no detail. I sat down at the kitchen table, the paper fluttering slightly in my hand. The numbers were clear. So was the implication. I called the insurance company, trying to sound casual, asked if they could walk me through the codes. The woman on the phone was polite, said she wasn't supposed to provide medical details, but confirmed the charges were accurate. The patient was discharged with an infant, she added. Discharged with an infant. I didn't argue. I thanked her, hung up, and sat there staring at nothing. I told myself there had to be an error, maybe a clerical mistake, a mix-up in billing codes. Systems fail sometimes. They're not perfect. But deep down, something old and familiar began to stir. A gut-level unease I hadn't felt since the day Claire first called me from that hospital room. The leak I thought had been grief started to feel more like rot. I needed answers. And I wasn't going to ask Claire. Not yet. I drove to the hospital 2 days later under the pretense of requesting a copy of our medical records. Claire had delivered at St. Luke's, the same hospital where her sister had once worked in admin. It was a small place, not hard to navigate. I told the front desk I wanted records from our child's birth. The woman behind the counter gave me a practiced smile, then typed something into her computer. "I'm sorry, sir, but these records are sealed." "Sealed?" I asked. "By who?" She looked uncomfortable. The mother submitted a privacy request shortly after the stay. Due to documented psychological distress, the records were marked confidential. Access requires her written consent. I thanked her and left. Psychological distress, a convenient shield, one I'd never been told about. On the drive home, I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't call Claire. I didn't even think. I just drove, hands tight on the wheel, mind flicking back to her behavior those early weeks. The absence of tears, the lack of details, the way she never let me ask questions. When I got home, I went straight to my desk drawer and pulled out an old business card. Michael Avery, a guy I'd gone to high school with. He worked in IT admin at the hospital. We'd kept in loose touch over the years. Christmas texts, the occasional beer when he was in town. I sent him a message. Need a quiet favor. Hospital system. Nothing illegal, just help me understand something. He replied 10 minutes later. Come by tomorrow, early. That night, Claire came home late. I pretended to be asleep on the couch. She didn't kiss my forehead or drape a blanket over me like she used to. She just passed by quietly, heels clicking on the hardwood, her perfume trailing like a stranger's shadow. The next morning, I shaved, dressed like it was a normal day, and drove to Michael's office with a single question buried under my ribs. Was my son ever really dead? Michael met me in a back hallway near the staff cafeteria, away from cameras and foot traffic. He looked older than I remembered, less hair, more gut, but the same dry sarcasm. You always did show up when things got weird, he said, sliding his badge through a secure door. What exactly are we looking for? Claire's hospital stay, I said. The delivery, and anything tied to the infant records from that night. He raised an eyebrow, but didn't ask questions. 10 minutes later, we were in a records room surrounded by hum and flicker. He typed quickly, eyes scanning a screen I couldn't see. You're lucky. Most of this would be locked down under the privacy request, but infant logs fall under a different database, and if it's not directly flagged. He trailed off, then leaned closer to the monitor. Okay, here it is. I stepped in behind him. A timestamp. 3:08 a.m., delivery logged, male child, vital signs stable, weight, height, APGAR scores, all normal. Then, discharged to Guardian 3 days later. My throat felt dry. That says Guardian, not deceased. Correct, Michael said quietly. There's no mention of death anywhere in the system. What about a death certificate? He did a second search, shook his head. Nothing filed under your name, Claire's, or the baby's ID tag, and there should be one, even for stillbirth, legally required. I didn't say anything, just stared at the screen like it might start making sense if I looked long enough. Michael turned to me, voice low. Look, I don't know what's going on, man, but from a record standpoint, your kid was born alive. He was healthy, and he left this hospital with someone. I thanked him, walked out without looking back. My hands felt colder than the December air outside. That night, Claire made soup, sat across from me at the table, scrolling her phone like nothing was wrong. I nodded, smiled, made a joke about a client at work. She laughed. It sounded hollow. I played my part. But something had shifted in me. I wasn't mourning anymore. I was hunting. Her name was Elena Ruiz. I found her through a parenting forum. Someone mentioned her name in an old thread about midwife recommendations. From there, it was just a matter of cross-referencing hospital staffing records, a LinkedIn page, and a phone number listed under a part-time yoga business. She answered on the second ring. Elena speaking. I introduced myself, gave her my name, mentioned Claire. There was a long pause. I don't talk about patients, she said carefully. I'm not asking for gossip. I just need to understand what happened. My son, he was born there. Claire told me he died, but the hospital records say otherwise. Another pause, then a breath. Meet me in person. I'll give you 10 minutes. That's all. We met at a coffee shop near the river. She wore plain clothes, hair pulled back, no makeup. She looked tired, older than the photo I'd seen. She didn't order anything. I shouldn't be doing this, she said, eyes darting toward the windows. I was let go 6 weeks after that night. Why? No explanation, just budget cuts, they said. But I'd questioned something in the discharge log. That's all it took. I slid a piece of paper across the table, a printout of the hospital summary. This says he was discharged, alive, to a guardian. She stared at it without touching it, then looked at me. Really looked. I was there, she said. I helped deliver him. He was crying, breathing, healthy. But Claire said, she shook her head. Claire didn't want to see him after delivery, refused to hold him, claimed trauma. Her signature was on the discharge, but she never once asked how he was doing. My jaw clenched. So where did he go? Elena leaned forward, her voice barely a whisper. You need to ask your wife why your son was never brought home. Then she stood up, grabbed her coat, and walked out. I didn't move for a long time. Just sat there, hands on the paper, heart pounding. Outside, the river kept flowing, quiet, indifferent. Whatever this was, it wasn't just deception anymore. It was something colder, something calculated. Claire kept her old laptop in the upstairs linen closet, tucked behind a stack of holiday blankets we hadn't used in years. She'd bought a new MacBook last Christmas, said her work files were getting too heavy. I never thought much of it, until now. It took me 20 minutes to bypass the password. She used our anniversary as her PIN, maybe out of habit, or maybe because she thought I'd never look. The desktop was cluttered with folders named after spa retreats and half-finished Word docs. I went straight to the trash bin. What I found didn't look like much at first. A handful of PDFs, a few old emails, a saved draft titled simply, Placement Terms. I opened it. The letterhead was unfamiliar. Linden Ridge Foundation. The language was clinical, buried in legalese, but the meaning was unmistakable. Full parental surrender, private adoption placement, undisclosed third-party recipient. There were numbers, too. 6 digits, and an agreement dated 2 weeks before Claire gave birth. Below that, another email thread, deleted, then recovered, between Claire and someone named Miranda Carrison. The subject line read, Confirmation of delivery, all documents signed. The last message from Miranda simply read, Funds have cleared. We'll handle the rest. Do not initiate contact moving forward. I sat there staring at the screen. Everything slowed down, like the air had thickened. Claire didn't lose our baby. She gave him away. No, she sold him. I don't remember standing up, but suddenly I was pacing the hallway. My breath felt shallow. The walls looked off-kilter, like the house itself was recoiling. This wasn't grief anymore. This was betrayal at a level I couldn't name. I copied everything onto a flash drive, every email, every document. Then I put the laptop back exactly where I found it. Claire came home 3 hours later, talking about a friend's engagement party. I nodded, smiled, asked what she wanted for dinner. She suggested Thai. We ate together. She laughed at something on her phone. I cleared the dishes. Inside my chest, something had calcified. Tomorrow, I would find out exactly what the Linden Ridge Foundation really was. Simple, tasteful, all muted blues and soft serif fonts. It used words like discreet, selective, boutique adoption services. It claimed to help mothers in moments of difficulty find homes for their children that ensure stability, prosperity, and long-term well-being. But something felt wrong. Too little information, no listed board members, no press coverage, no public records, just a contact form and a single P.O. box in Vermont. I started digging. Their nonprofit status was real, on paper, registered 2 years ago. But their financial disclosures were a joke. No donors listed, no expenses, no oversight. A friend of mine from undergrad, Katrina, a forensic accountant, helped me trace what little information I could find. "This isn't a charity," she said. "It's a shell, a funnel." She found a trail of wire transfers going through 3 banks and ending at a holding company tied to a luxury legal firm in Switzerland. Linden Ridge didn't place babies, it sold them. The term they used was private placement, but the price tags were unmistakable. Children from discrete circumstances were matched with high-net-worth clients who wanted a clean adoption. No courts, no social workers, no paper trails. Just a child, handed off like a couriered package. And Claire had used them. I went back to the emails and focused on the name Miranda Carrison. She wasn't listed on Linden Ridge's website, but a deeper search found her LinkedIn profile. Family Integration Specialist, formerly with 2 adoption consultancies in California. She'd been quietly disbarred from social work licensing 3 years ago. Something about ethical conflicts. The record was sealed. Miranda was the facilitator, the one who handled the dirty work. Claire had spoken to her multiple times over 6 months. Emails, calls, even a calendar reminder for a meeting 2 days before labor. This wasn't a moment of panic. It was planned. I printed every document, organized every file. That night, Claire mentioned something about booking a spring vacation, said we could use some time to reconnect. I smiled and nodded, but I didn't hear a word she said, because now I knew. She didn't just lie, she conspired. I mailed the DNA kit on a Wednesday, a simple plastic vial and a barcode. No explanation, no expectations, just a hunch and a hope that someone might still be out there. I used an alias, a P.O. box I'd rented under a false name. Claire didn't know. No one did. For the next 2 weeks, I went through the motions. Work, dinner, silence. Claire asked if I was feeling distant. I said I was just tired. She offered to plan a weekend getaway. I said maybe. The nights were harder. I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, imagining a child with my eyes. A boy who would have been 2 by now. Walking, talking, laughing, maybe calling someone else dad. I told myself not to get attached. Told myself the odds were slim. These databases weren't magic. But still, I checked the app every morning like clockwork. On the 15th day, a new notification appeared. You have a close family match. I opened it, heart thudding. There it was. 99.9% shared DNA. Parent-child match. Name: Elliot Jameson. Age: 2. Location: upstate New York. Parents: Michael and Lena Jameson. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. He existed. Not an idea, not a memory, not a lie. A living, breathing child. My son. I clicked through their profile, public photos. A boy with sandy hair standing in a fall pumpkin patch, cheeks red with cold. His eyes were mine, no question. His smile crooked like my father's. Michael and Lena looked like catalog parents. Clean, symmetrical, expensive. Smiling with controlled warmth. The kind of people who used phrases like legacy and curated experience. They had no idea what had been done to bring that boy into their lives. I closed the browser and sat back, air hollow in my chest. The grief I'd buried wasn't grief anymore. It was rage. Quiet, steady, cold. I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I picked up my phone and texted Claire. We need to talk. Now, she met me on the back deck, barefoot, wine glass in hand. The sunset behind her cast long shadows across the lawn. It should have been peaceful. It wasn't. You look like hell, she said lightly, trying to smile. I didn't respond. I pulled the folder from my jacket and placed it on the table between us. She stared at it, confused at first, then wary. She didn't open it. What's this? Everything, I said. Emails, contracts, the placement agreement, Miranda, Linden Ridge, the DNA results. She didn't move. I found him, Claire. Our son. For a second, her face held nothing. Then it cracked. Slow, like something tectonic giving way. She sank into the nearest chair. How long have you known? She whispered. Long enough, I said. Why? Tears welled, but her voice stayed level. I wasn't ready. I was lost. The pregnancy wasn't planned. You were busy, cold, always working. And then Miranda reached out, said she could help, said there were families who would give him more than we ever could. So you lied, told me he died. Let me bury a name we never even got to give him. She nodded, eyes wet but unblinking. I didn't think you'd understand. You're right, I said. The silence between us stretched. I thought he'd have a better life, she said finally. Money, stability, no military deployments, no long hours, no us. And what about me? I thought you'd move on. I stood up, heart calm but heavy. I did, I said. Just not the way you hoped. She reached for me as I turned. Please. But I walked inside without another word. She didn't follow. The lawyer's office was quiet, all glass walls and soft gray carpet, the kind of place that charged by the hour just for breathing. His name was Henry Mallon, a custody specialist, referred by a friend who'd gone through a brutal divorce. I handed him the folder without a word. He took one look at the top document, the placement agreement, and sighed. This is going to be messy. Can I get him back? I asked. He didn't answer right away, just flipped through the pages, skimming, underlining in pencil. When he finally looked up, his expression was flat. Depends what you mean by get him back. He laid it out for me in legal language that felt like a slow gut punch. Claire had committed fraud. No question. She forged my consent, submitted paperwork listing me as unknown. That alone could invalidate the adoption. But the Jamesons, the adoptive parents, were likely unaware of the fraud. That made it more complicated. You may be entitled to custody reversal, Mallon said, or at the very least, visitation. But if they fight you on it... He paused, leaned forward. It'll be a war. I nodded, jaw tight. Custody courts don't like disrupting stable environments, especially when the child's been with the adoptive family for over a year. Judges prioritize the child's current well-being, not just biology. But if you can show that your rights were deliberately circumvented, you've got a chance. What if they're not stable? I asked. What if they were part of the deception? He raised an eyebrow. Then you're not in family court anymore. You're in federal territory, fraud, trafficking, conspiracy. I didn't say anything, just stared at the name Elliot Jameson written in looping cursive on the final page of the adoption file. He was mine. Still was. I want to meet them, I said quietly. Not through lawyers. Just talk. Malin didn't argue. But keep it off the record. No accusations, no threats. You're not the angry father. You're the man who just wants to know his son. I left the office with a heavy folder, a heavier heart, and a meeting to arrange. It took a week to get a response. I sent a letter, printed, not typed, addressed directly to Lena Jameson, the adoptive mother. No demands, no legal threats, just a request. Please meet me. No lawyers, no press. Just a father who wants to understand what happened to his son. The reply came 2 days later. A private number. A single sentence. Saturday, 11 a.m., Crosswinds Cafe. Come alone. I arrived early, chose a table in the corner, kept my hands on my coffee mug to stop them from shaking. At 10:58, Lena walked in. She was polished, tailored coat, soft curls, no wasted movement. The kind of woman used to managing chaos with a firm smile. But when she saw me, something in her face shifted, softened. "You're Nathan?" she asked. I nodded. "Thank you for coming." She sat across from me, didn't order anything. "I wasn't sure if this was real," she said. "But then I saw your eyes. He has your eyes." For a second, I couldn't speak. "I'm not here to fight you," I said. "I just want to know what you were told." She exhaled. That the mother was unfit. History of mental illness, no father listed. That the child was a product of trauma. We were told it was all legally handled. And if it wasn't? "I don't know," she admitted. "We love him. He's our son." There it was, the wall. Before I could respond, her husband arrived. Michael. Square jaw, stiff posture. Not pleased. "What is this?" he asked, not sitting. "I'm Elliot's biological father," I said calmly. "Claire forged the documents. She told me he died." "That's not our problem," Michael snapped. "We did everything by the book." "The book was written in lies," I said. Lena touched her husband's arm, gentle. "Michael." He pulled back. "We're done here." They left together, Lena glancing back only once. I didn't chase them, didn't raise my voice, because I'd seen it. In her eyes, the doubt, the beginning of something that might grow. And now, they knew who I was. It didn't take long after the meeting with the Jamesons. Whether Lena talked to her husband that night or waited a few days, I don't know. But someone made a call. The investigation went public within the week. Claire was subpoenaed, served in our driveway on a Tuesday morning. She tried to play confused, tried to act surprised, but the agents didn't blink. They handed her the envelope, said, "Federal inquiry into fraudulent adoption practices," and walked away. She didn't speak to me for 3 days after that. The Linden Ridge Foundation folded overnight. Website gone. Office cleaned out. Miranda Carrison's number disconnected. Her LinkedIn deleted. As far as I could tell, she disappeared into smoke. A federal investigator I'd been speaking with, Agent Toller, said she had a history. Different names, offshore accounts. They'd been after her for years. Claire was just one of many mothers she manipulated. Meanwhile, the Jamesons lawyered up, but not aggressively. Lena, I was told, wanted to work with the court. Michael didn't. He'd pushed for a sealed custody battle, but the moment federal fraud got involved, the choice wasn't his anymore. I filed a petition for custody reversal, citing forged consent, lack of due process, and illegal placement. The judge didn't throw it out. That was something. Instead, he offered a preliminary ruling. Pending full review and psychological evaluations, I'd be granted supervised visitation twice a month, in neutral territory, with Elliot. I accepted without hesitation. Claire, through her lawyer, pleaded out. No jail, no parental rights. In exchange for a full confession and cooperation with the feds, her signature meant she could never petition for custody again. I watched her sign from across the courtroom. Her hand didn't shake. We didn't speak. There wasn't anything left to say. That night, I sat in the nursery we'd never finished. I turned on the old mobile. The plastic stars still spun, a ghost of what should have been. But this time, the story wasn't ending there. It was just beginning. The meeting was set for 10 a.m. on a Saturday. A child services counselor met me in the lobby of a play therapy center outside Albany. Soft walls, puzzles, neutral colors. The kind of place built to be safe, forgettable. Elliot's shy, she warned. Let him set the pace. I nodded, heart in my throat. When they brought him in, he was clutching a stuffed giraffe. He looked smaller in person, lighter. His hair was longer than the photo I'd seen, and he had a tiny scab on his chin. From a fall, maybe, or just being two. He glanced at me, then at the floor. I didn't move. Hi, I said softly. I'm Nathan. He didn't answer, just sat across from me, legs swinging slightly off the bench. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the toy airplane, metal, vintage-style red wings, just like the one my dad gave me when I was a boy. I'd kept it all these years, and when I found a replica online, I bought it without thinking. I slid it across the table. He looked at it, then at me. His fingers brushed it once, then curled around it. Carefully, like it was something fragile. That one's yours, I said. You can keep it. Still no words, but his hand tightened around the plane, and he didn't let go. For the next 20 minutes, we didn't talk much. He lined up blocks. I helped stack them. He knocked them over. I acted surprised. He almost smiled. Just before the visit ended, he held up the plane. Zoom, he whispered. I felt something shatter and rebuild in the same instant. Heartbreak and hope tangled together in my chest like wires under tension. The counselor nodded. That's a good sign. I nodded too, but I couldn't speak. When he left, he looked back once. Didn't wave. But I didn't need him to. He'd remembered the plane. And that was a start. It's been 14 months since that first visit. Elliot still doesn't call me Dad, and that's okay. He knows my name, knows my face. When I visit, he runs up now, arms full of toys, chatter tumbling out of his mouth like marbles. We've built towers, read books, watched birds through the windows of that therapy center. He points to the clouds now and says, Zoom, still holding that little red airplane I gave him. We're not there yet, but we're not strangers anymore. The custody battle is still ongoing. The Jamesons fought hard at first, then less. Lena's voice changed in court, less defensive, more deliberate. I think she sees it now. Not just the legal mistake, but the moral one. Michael's a different story. He stiffens when I'm near, won't speak directly to me, but he hasn't blocked the visitation. Not once. Some grudges are quieter than others. Claire left the state. Last I heard, she's living with a cousin near Denver, working at a boutique. She mailed me a letter 6 months ago, apologized, said she was lost back then, that she hated herself for what she did. I didn't reply. Not because I wanted to punish her, but because I meant what I said in court. Some things you don't come back from. The Linden Ridge Foundation is gone. The feds dismantled it piece by piece. Miranda was never caught, but they've tied her to 3 other international adoption cases now. They say it's only a matter of time. Maybe, maybe not. Some people vanish and stay vanished, but her damage didn't. I wasn't the only father who thought his child was gone forever. I still have the folder. Every page, every email, every lie. But now I keep it in a drawer instead of carrying it everywhere. It's a reminder, not of the betrayal, but of the fact that the truth came out, that I didn't let it go. The fight's not finished. Custody hearings still loom. Evaluations, hearings, paperwork. It's slow, sometimes brutal. But I'm in my son's life now. Legally. Permanently. And every time he hugs me, every time he calls my name, I know the effort was worth it. I didn't fight to punish her. I fought so one day, when he asks where I was, I'd have an answer that made me proud. This story was brutal, but this story on the right-hand side is even more insane.